starting anything new, any kind of new endeavor, creative especially, something that's foreign to you, taking the chance to do that is a very brave thing to do. I don't take that lightly at all, because I've been in that position. Don't be harsh on yourself.
You're listening to the Voiceover Casting Corner, a podcast and question and answer session recorded live every month. VCC is brought to you by the Voicecaster. The Voicecaster casts thousands of voices every year across all genres, and we're excited to give you an inside look at the casting process direct from our casting team.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Voiceover Casting Corner. This is episode number 20, where we have a chat with Dave Boat. My name is Kelly Moshinsky. I am the owner and head of casting here at the Voicecaster.
And my name's Catherine Horan. I'm the senior casting director here at the Voicecaster.
All right, so let's get started.
Dave Boat is a veteran voice actor known for voicing Rupert the Teddy Bear from Family Guy, Lord Vorselon, Vorn Garblak, and the Drophyds from Ratchet and Clank, Thor and The Thing in various Marvel cartoons and games, Lexaeus from Kingdom Hearts, Vortex from Danny Phantom, and Kyle from Fortnite. He has over 170 credits on IMDb in animation and videos. Plus, he has spent decades voicing commercials and other areas of voiceover.
Hello.
Awesome. Welcome.
The sound of my voice.
Hello.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So excited to chat with you. So obviously, Catherine just listed some of your credits. You have so many credits. What are some of your favorites? What are things that you've done, whether they were on that list or anything that you've done? Do you have any?
I mean, you listed really fun ones there. I did The Sims for several years, Sims 2 and various other iterations of that game and all the expansion packs and what have you. That was the longest, I think, ongoing project I did. I think it was like 5 years or so. And I got it right after I moved to Los Angeles in 2002. Cool. So I was commuting to the Bay Area and working for sometimes 2 weeks at a time, like within 6 months or so of moving to Los Angeles, but I'm happy to have the gig. But yeah, that was the most challenging and maybe the most fun as well. But it could be exhausting. That's 8 hours, 8-hour days. And all of it, of course, is improvised language, gibberish that had to sound like a language, working to very rough animation, stick figure articulation, but the timing had to be there. And sometimes there's 3 or 4 beats in a cue. And it was just, I was working with my female counterpart given the game, and we just go back and forth. And so in the lead in to the timing, which is beep, 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 and then you go on 4. And I was hearing that in my sleep because it was just, 8 hours of that. Again, great fun, but man, my brain was mush by the end of the day, speaking nothing but gibberish. And it was exciting though. It was very fun.
Yeah, I mean, I remember The Sims, and trying to make sense of all of that. It's like I remember seeing people auditioning for Sims, and it was like,
oh, sure.
Oh yeah.
It's like, you have to.
I lost a lot of time to that gaming.
You're not alone. Popular with young women and girls, from what I understood when I first started finding out about the game. I remember a couple of different times, like on plane flights to and from the Bay Area, get to talking to somebody, and a couple of times there'd be somebody like, "Oh, my daughter plays that game all day long, and she and my wife are picking me up at the airport. Can you would you meet my daughter?" I said, "Sure, okay." I didn't know it was such a big deal, but all right. And they were just crazy about the game. So I did find out later. I mean, it's of course everybody loves it. Everybody who plays it, that is, and it's boys and girls, men and women. Just a fabulous time, and really great people to work with too. So that was very fun.
That's great.
So cool. And to travel to do voiceover, I mean, that's like, you don't do that much more now,
No, not at all.
And from home studios.
And this is before, at least initially, it was before they got picked up. What was the name of the Maxis, I think was the name of the company. And they had not been acquired, if that's the word, by Electronic Arts yet. That, or they were a satellite company of Electronic Arts, but they moved into the Electronic Arts building. But this was out in the North Bay I was staying in Lafayette. Well, Corte Madera, I think, was where the building was. Beautiful part of the Bay Area, Mill Valley and San Rafael. And yeah, it's just lovely North Bay, but they put me up in a nice hotel for like 2 weeks at a time, with a per diem and everything. And that doesn't happen anymore.
Oh.
And yeah. So and then when they moved to the Redwood City campus, I could stay at my dad's place at the house I grew up in Portola Valley. So they saved a lot of money. They were happy about that. It's like, oh, your dad lives on the peninsula. Yeah, well, it's a half-hour commute, but okay.
They should be paying you extra for that.
Yeah, no, they treated me very well. So
that's awesome.
Well, you mentioned that was one of the first jobs you had. So how did you get started in the voiceover industry?
Yeah, well, actually, it was one of the first jobs I had after I moved to LA. I'd been actually in it for 2 or 3 years in the Bay Area. How did I get into it? Compressed story, the $10 version or the $2 version. I had followed animation my whole life, as most people who have show any interest in animation voiceover had all the exposure to mostly Disney cartoons and what have you. Disney, Warner Brothers above anything else. All of the Warner Brothers stuff I was crazy for, but the standard Saturday morning cartoon fare as well. But I grew up when they were just starting to show massive reruns Saturday morning of all the Warner Brothers stuff. For that matter, they had a Sunday night show. I think the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner Hour was it was like a primetime show. I had no concept though, or an inkling. Like, yeah, I knew about Mel Blanc and I knew about other people who did voices, but like the consideration that I could do that, and I was always a class clown, character-y mimic sort of person, but it just never dawned on me. And then I heard an interview with somebody on the radio, and they were talking about a school, and I remember writing down the name of the person who ran the school. I wrote down the city it was in, which is Sausalito. Turns out to be Voice Tracks in Sausalito. I had that slip of paper. It was just on a tiny piece of paper. I had it for like 2 or 3 years. I almost threw it out half a dozen times, just cleaning out my desk and what have you. Like, one of these days. Jump forward 3-4 years. I'm working with a band. We're on a morning radio show. They were a big show, and we were doing the morning show, 6 a.m. King of the Hill had just come out, and I was doing some King of the Hill impressions in the studio, goofing with the DJs, and we were playing interstitial music during the breaks. They were big fans of the show and said, "Hey, wow, that's really good. Can you maybe do like some station ID stuff for us?" Or like, okay, sure. What is that? And so they stuck me in front of a microphone. I did some Hank Hill impressions and some station IDs, and bass player in the band said, "Hey, you're good at that. My sister-in-law does voiceover for a living. She's coming to the next gig. You should talk to her." Oh, okay. Turns out she taught at this place voice tracks that I had written down on the piece of paper years and years ago. And I went to an intro class, and that was it. That was 1998. I knew right away, okay, this is something I can do. Sort of burned through the savings, taking as many classes as I could. This involved a commute to Sausalito, which is an hour drive from where I was living on the peninsula in Palo Alto. But I was happy to do it, sometimes 2 classes a week, and met all kinds of mentors and learned just everything I could in every possible corner of the business. Some things I gravitated toward more than others. Got an agent within a year. It's a much more provincial area compared to Los Angeles as far as talent agencies go and what have you. So I got an invitation to do an audition for an agency, one of the 2 bigger agencies, Stars Agency in San Francisco. And they liked me. I immediately started getting some work, which is great. Joined the union like 6 months in. They even had me starting to do on-camera commercial stuff. I had no ambition to do that. They asked for a headshot. I said, "Why do you want a headshot?" "I do voiceovers." Like, "Well, we're thinking of putting you out for some on-camera commercial stuff." Booked a couple of those and then got the checks and said, "I do commercials." Maybe I'll take a class to figure out what the hell I'm doing, because I don't know what I'm doing, but it's working. A year and a half later, moved to Los Angeles. And I've been here since. While I was taking classes, I worked at a really great stringed instrument store in Palo Alto, Griffin Stringed Instruments. Bought a pager, if you remember those. Didn't know how to operate. The first real gig I got, the pager went off. I said, what's going on? This thing's buzzing, and I don't know what's that number, and I don't know how to scroll or anything. And then it buzzed again and buzzed again. It was my agency calling me. Didn't have a cell phone at the time. So they were like, where the hell you been? You got to call faster than that. I didn't know how to use the thing. So yeah, it was very exciting. Still is. I'm still amazed whenever people hire me. It's like, wow, really? Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm so pleasantly surprised somebody liked what I did enough to hire me.
That's so awesome. I love that you kept the piece of paper, but then it came full circle with meeting somebody who worked there. It's like that.
Yeah,
that's
synchronistic.
Yeah,
yeah. That was the message. It's like, okay. Didn't give up the interest, or I guess you'd call it the inkling of a dream. It's like, that sounded really interesting. It's like, wow, there's a place where you can actually go to learn to do stuff. And that's really how pretty much almost everybody I know in the business has come up doing classes of some sort. And that's all levels in all realms: commercial, animation, narration. People learned it from somebody else. Others are sort of preternaturally just like gifted and came up through other areas of show business that has some, because I had never taken an acting class in my life up until my first voiceover class. I then dove completely into theater study, scene study, dramatic, comedic, what have you. Continue with that for a few years. That and improv, another thing. Anything that helped with acting in any way is vital. Or can contribute to the quality of voiceover. Voiceover is a particular skill, and it has its own quirks, but it is acting, irrespective of whether it's animation or not. It's involved in commercial as well. It's having a reason to say what you're saying. Otherwise, you just sound like you're reading.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people say that too. They're like, oh, yeah, the nice thing about voiceover is you can just read the script. You don't have to memorize it. And it's like, more than just reading a script.
and they it's like, well, is that narration? No, that's not even narration. That's just reading something out loud. Is what you just described. Narration involves acting as well. You have to be involved and invested and telling a story and have someone you're speaking to and a reason to be saying the reason to be speaking to them and telling them this story. It's all very layered. If not, then it just sounds like you're reading out loud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So going in the animation direction, what are some trends that you've seen over the years in animation? How has it changed since you first started out to now? Are there things that you're like, I'm so happy that changed, or things where you're like, it used to be fun like this, bummer that changed?
Well, it's always fun. It still is fun. It's such a broad realm because of the demographics. When The Simpsons came out, that was an utter revelation. I should mention that had a lot to do with my continuing excitement and interest in animation. And it was for a lot of people. Good Lord, 37 years ago, 1988. I mean, I had seen the shorts at like animation festivals and on the Tracy Ullman show, and was blown away by them. And the animation festival stuff too, just the stuff that you wouldn't see on television Saturday morning, because where else would you see it? There was no such thing as Adult Swim or FX or Fox Animation at the time, or yet, until The Simpsons. And just prior to that, all the stuff out of CalArts and what have you. I remember getting the bootleg VHS tapes of the CalArts students' animation work. There's stuff for very young children, all the the Disney Junior stuff, and then there's the Disney stuff, and then for a while the Cartoon Network doesn't exist as Cartoon Network anymore, but that and Nickelodeon, and then there's the Fox animation stuff. Again, more adult and kids can get into it. Young adults, kids aim towards that, the primetime animation stuff. And then there's the Archer and various other shows that are a little more blue. BoJack Horseman, which deals with even more serious issues and genuine drama. Rick and Morty, for crying out loud. Oh my goodness, one of the greatest shows ever. It's just a very wide spectrum now, and that didn't used to exist.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, there's still Disney films and there's still Pixar and other larger animation companies. It's really in some ways, kind of a golden era, because there's so much going on and so many more networks now that are doing animation. I mean, Amazon Prime and Netflix, Paramount Plus, and it's just it's everywhere. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of it is kind of disposable. I mean, as with anything, it's like, hey, where everybody's doing animation now. Well, this show's not that great, but it's work. I'll have fun doing it. Yeah. It's one little character, and it's like, I don't care how many stars it got on IMDb. I like doing that character. I like doing that show. Yeah. That there is no bad work. It's just,
Yeah. Have you noticed a trend or a shift, I should say, in the actual style? A lot of people talk about like, cartoony versus the more naturalistic.
Well, that's where.
Have you noticed that? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just because there's more of everything now, there's more of the theatrical, real, quote unquote, read now. I mean, shows like Archer, again, BoJack Horseman would be another one, but again, very real, down to earth, natural read sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. No vocal put-ons of any kind. In some ways, Bob's Burgers is kind of like that too. It's kind of a traditional sitcom. Again, one of my absolute all-time favorite shows, and I think it's just still brilliant. I met somebody at a gig not too long ago, whom is the first person I met who just really hated that show. And I thought, well, we don't have that in common. He was virulent. It's like, oh God, that's just the worst. The worst. What? And I mean, I like this dude, but I'm looking at you different. It's like we have that much less to talk about now. Oh, and then he went off on like he felt that the first two seasons of Family Guy were funnier than the rest. I said, okay, that's backwards, but all right. I didn't say that, but I'm thinking that. It's like, all right. Well, that's an opinion.
So you met somebody with bad taste.
Well, different taste. No, to each his own. And there, it's art is subjective, and I didn't go into it with him about why he felt that. There wasn't time to do that. It was in the middle of a gig. I was just sort of gobsmacked, like, what?
Yeah.
And okay. Well,
I guess that's why there are probably so many different types, right? I mean,
why there's chocolate and vanilla.
Yeah. Trying to appeal to everybody.
Yeah, somebody will watch this and say, like, yeah, that guy was right. I hate Bob's Burgers. Exactly. It's trash. It's like, all right. I love you anyways. We just disagree there.
We can still be friends.
Yes. Animation will bring the world together. Would that we could.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's trends. There's more of that. But just because there's more of everything.
That makes sense.
Yeah. That is a pocket of artistic expression in animation that has expanded and has been accepted and then expanded. Yeah. And then you get shows like Big Mouth, and that has both, like the wild cartoony stuff, the fantasy creatures and what have you, and very realistic feeling conversations. Granted, they're adults, but they're talking like adolescents. Adults that act like adolescents. Given if you know their work, they're comedians, so they kind of occupy that world, but very natural feel to the delivery. They're not putting on a voice so much. Nick Kroll maybe for his devil character, but not for his kid character. He's just more natural kid.
I love that. Thank you.
So within your own career, Dave, what have been maybe some of your bigger successes or things that you're really proud of? Or have there been any challenges or things that you've had to overcome to get where you are now?
The success for me, especially when I was getting started, and I try to keep this perspective the whole time, is like, if I can make as much money as I am right now cooking, which was not a lot, but it was enough to get by, and just do that outside of a kitchen doing voiceover, my life is made. I'm much happier with a lot more energy, and having a lot of fun. And I hit that pretty quickly, relatively speaking. And everything else has just been playing with house money. So success for me was the journey, and still continues to be just doing it. I wish I could do more, but I'm happy working with what I do get. And almost everybody I know would love to be doing more of it. The people
I was just going to say the same thing. Yep.
Yeah.
How can I feel like they're working all day, every day, and they're like they always want to do more,
because it is very fun. And not everybody gets to do it. I feel incredibly lucky. I try to be honest and objective with people coming up, like in the introductory class, especially. It's like, a lot of people want to do this. Not everybody's going to get to do it, but if it makes you happy, just learning to do it, that's success right there. Whether you get a gig ever or not, it's finding what makes you happy. If you don't enjoy working at it, you're never going to enjoy it. And challenges, plenty of them. Crises of confidence at times. I still have them. Like, I haven't booked something in X amount of time, and like, well, maybe that's it. They figured me out. I'm a fraud. This is the actor's dilemma. Is like, well, that's it. Waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was lucky for a while, but then they pulled the rug out. They figured me out. I'm no good for this. I'm not worthy. But then, then I'd get some work, and it's like, oh, I'm saved. But not defining myself by the job, quote unquote, but just enjoying what I do get to do. So, but part of why teaching is fun. It's just engaging and getting people excited about it and encouraging. It goes back to the big question that I get in any class, introductory or not, is like, how do you get an agent, or how do you get going? And I wish I knew, because there are 100 different stories from 100 different people. I never had to come up in Los Angeles in the 2000s. I was in San Francisco in the late 90s. Utterly different scene. Again, like I said, provincial. Maybe getting into a union was easier for me there because of that. It was a much smaller market, much shallower talent pool, and there was union work to be had, especially commercial work. A lot of voiceover commercial work at major agencies there. Not as much anymore, but also a lot of video game stuff came out of the Bay Area, certainly Electronic Arts, but other stuff as well. LucasArts. I was able to get into the union pretty quickly that way. And I understand now, just having spoken with people who have, come through my class and trying to come up through Los Angeles, it's considerably more confusing and difficult in some ways. And I say that, but I say that out of virtually no knowledge of how the heck to do that now. I know that you guys teach like a seminar or something about like how to approach agencies and how to get your stuff together. And I always direct them there. Cause like I've never been somebody to say like, oh yeah, well it's this and not what the hell I'm talking about. It's like, no, I don't know. I have no problem telling you that I am clueless. And my route in is unique as is anybody else's in this town. So let me refer you to people who might know considerably more, which would be anybody, but have much more knowledge about this than I do, and head them in your direction. But yeah, it's not easy. And the challenges, I've gone through times like, okay, I'll be purchasing cheaper olive oil for a while now. And it's just like, okay, I gotta, take care of the money. It's like, circle the wagons. It's been a little slow. By hook and by crook, I've made my living full time doing it for 26 years now. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. So kind of on that same note, what advice would you give to actors just starting out?
Be easy on yourself. Have patience with yourself. Don't be hard on yourself. Learning something new is difficult. You're being brave just by taking the step towards learning something new, irrespective of what the discipline is. There's a book I recommend to anybody, any creative who finds a new creative venture or medium daunting as anybody would. One of my favorite songwriters and artists in general, Jeff Tweedy of the band Wilco, has written a few books, small tomes, but really great. And one of them is called How to Write One Song. And in it, he talks about how challenging it is to get started at, in this case, songwriting, but you can apply this to any endeavor, any kind of creativity, arts or otherwise. Sitting down to write a book, sitting down to make something out of nothing, or learn a new skill. In this case, songwriting. You're going to reach a nexus pretty quickly, since you probably listen to a lot of music and you know how great stuff can sound. Your stuff's not going to sound like that right out of the gate. In fact, it's probably going to be pretty bad. And the judgment, internal tapes are going to come. They might be from you. They might be, you can go back and like figure out who that voice in your head is like, yeah, that sucks. Oh, you're no good. Oh, why are you even bothering? Oh, listen to what that other guy did. That was awesome. That's how you do it. Oh, I'm not measuring up here. Oh, it's all competition and it's all nonsense. And everybody gets it to one degree or another. A lot of people, I almost said most, but I don't know that, but a lot of people, that's it. They get that tape comes on and they give up. And I get it. It's hard. It's difficult. What's the point? Getting past that and persevering. In this case, with this writing one song, and he walks you through like you can do this. Hey, you did it once. Yeah, it's not Bob Dylan, but it's yours, and now you can do it, and you can be critical about it or not. It's like, well, just write another one. You've done it. You've just shown yourself you can do it. See what you've learned in writing that first one. Do it again. Okay, I won't make this mistake again. That sounded repetitive, or it was just sounded kind of monotone, or the words I wasn't happy with that. What can I do? All right, just do it again. And it's muscle memory, a lot of it. It's just getting into the habit of working at it. The more familiar I get with doing any kind of, again, creative endeavor, my vocabulary is off a little today. I'll use that term again. It's the journey. It's a cliche, I know, but the process of just doing it, if you can get past the inner critic and just get to where you want to be better at it, walk through that minefield of judgment, self-judgment, or even in some cases, exterior judgment. You can hit a bad teacher too. And like, yeah, no, you're doing it all wrong. You're doing it all wrong. And that was something I had to overcome going to classes again. I ADHD, got that all up in my brain, have since I can remember. It's always been a case. I mean, go back to being a class clown and what have you, and easy distractibility. Yeah, it was such a challenge to get through some things when people were disappointed. I had bad teachers because I was not giving them what they felt was required. People didn't, when I was growing up, neurodivergence never discussed. Mm-hmm. And getting things done on their track at their time wasn't fitting me, wasn't suiting me. And I wasn't getting work done and felt really bad about that. I knew, and when I did do work, it was considered really good work, and my teachers loved that. But then I, would blow it off for weeks at a time, just couldn't get it together, or wouldn't be on time. Suffered judgment from them and parents and peers and what have you. It's like, all right, I guess I'm not made for this sort of thing. Well, okay, this is all on me. No, I just learned differently. So being easier on myself, going back to a classroom, in this case, voiceover classes. Thank God I had some good teachers, and I had people who were encouraging me and understood my quirks. And, for that matter, voiceover is kind of a natural realm for people who are neurodivergent. I've come to find, like, at least half my students, that's why I'm open about it in class, like first class, like, well, here's where I am. If I get a little distracted and I'm telling a story, I'm much better now about bringing it back in than I used to be, just to ask some of my old girlfriends and or most of the people I know. It's great to find good teachers. And and when I got that encouragement, that's what really kind of got me through. was like, I was so hesitant to like, because classroom came with a lot of baggage for me, because school was very upsetting. I never looked forward to school. I did well and got into a major university and what have you, but that was just all on test scores. And so, yeah, finding teachers that understood me and understood quote unquote artistic temperament, read neurodivergence, or just somebody whose brain worked a little bit differently. They were used to it. They'd seen it before and probably had a dose of it themselves, so finding the tribe and finding creatives. And I found that in acting community in general and music community as well, creatives in general. It's extremely common, and being aware of it and talking about it. And I'm now working at it and work with somebody about executive function and distractibility and what have you. And I'm much more sharp and aware and together on that sort of stuff now. But adults especially, so many are undiagnosed. There's so many kids now getting diagnosed with it and getting treated for it. And there are adaptations at schools and what have you, that considerations they have to make, that as adults are like, okay, well, we're going to talk to the kids first. They can be helped. No, it's like, no, we want to get them off on the right foot. They're young and we want to get things adjusted there. I get it. But again, finding good teachers, and they aren't all good. And I'm not laying any claim to being good or not. I do try to be a good person above anything else, and not all of them are. So if you get one that rubs you the wrong way for whatever reason, you're not getting what you want, please don't let that discourage you from finding somebody else. It's not you, it's them. And you will find a match for someone who can get you through it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I know of a couple of people in their 40s who were recently diagnosed with ADHD. It was the same thing, where it was like the checklist, and it was like, oh wow, this is me. Yeah. And since now being treated, it's like life-changing.
Oh, utterly. And explains so much. My dad passed away a couple of years ago, and we were going through a lot of the old family stuff, and I found all of my grade school evaluations from my teachers. Oh, that was an eye-opener. Dave is brilliant and really does great and blah, blah, blah. And the prominent word in almost every one of them was, however. Yeah, here's a list of stuff he's doing in class. And yeah, he seems to learn really quickly and then is an utter distraction for everybody else in class. And I've talked to him about this, but he seems to forget it. Yeah, he's got to understand that not everybody's going to pick up on it as quickly as he does. And he just doesn't seem to care.
Did you frame all of these?
No, I took pictures. I had a friend who just had the same thing happen to him. And he said he burned them symbolically. He's like, I took pictures, and then it's like, nah, I got rid of the paper. It's like, nah, I know this. And it's like, yeah, it's amusing, but it's also slightly tragic, because they were like, they were clueless. They didn't know what to do with me. I get it. I was a distraction in class. Absolutely. What they were saying was utterly true. They just didn't know what the hell to do with me. Yeah. So can you blame them? I do. No. There's only one.
Figure it out.
I won't mention a name because we could be libeled, but no, my 6th grade teacher was just horrible. And that was a terrible, terrible experience. And I suffered the whole year. But yeah, she just threw up her hands and picked on me. And it was just really rough. So I know a lot of people have stories like that. Just you find one bad teacher and then it's like, well, that's it. Schooling sucks. So I'm on to whatever.
Oh yeah. It'll shape you, it'll change the trajectory of your life. It's like I had a math teacher that turned me off of math completely. And then it came, I went to college for pre-med, and it was one of those things where it's like, oh, well, you need to take a remedial math class. And I'm like, teacher, because I just 9th grade math, I just gave up, it was like,
yeah, we lack the language to, as kids, especially, but, we're talking about adults coming into class here, but there are learned behaviors and reactions coming into any kind of class that can fester for years. I mean, like I said, going into a voiceover class, in my 30s, it was daunting and it brought back, all the ghosts of classrooms past and teachers past. And it's like, is this person going to be a jerk? You know, it's like, they're going to be super critical of me and expect this. And if I don't give them that, then I'm going to be doing something wrong. Where's the judgment? Oh, it's not coming. Oh, I'm free. You know, oh, this is fun. I can just relax and go crazy and be a goof and do whatever it is I do, and they'll understand. And if I get, if I'm a distraction, and which would happen once in a while, even in my adult years, I'd get a little out of hand. Like, Dave, okay, I'm good. I'll shut up. Sorry, just having fun. I'm excited.
Well, speaking of classes, you teach our intro to animation and our intermediate animation classes. Tell us a little bit about what you go over, what you teach in those, and what people looking to get into animation and want to take those classes, what they can expect.
There's so much to know in the business and in just the basics of what to do. This last intro class in particular, there was such a gulf in the amount of experience in acting in general. As it was with me, I had never taken an acting class in my life. When I took my first voiceover class, been a student of it and of film and theater and comedy and various other things forever, but never any kind of training, even in high school. I mean, I hung out with theater kids, but I was never considered it for myself. Wish I had, going back, but no regrets. It would have made sense for me to circle into that, but it was music and sports, and it's like, how much time in the day is there, I guess. Above anything else, I try to just let them know that there are no wrong answers, especially when you're just getting started in something. There's a lot to absorb. I go over what the business is about and how things work, just the machinations of the business in general. Again, try to be realistic about it's a tough nut to crack, especially at voiceover in general, and it's maybe especially animation and video game stuff, because everybody wants to do it. But again, encouraging, not discouraging. Introduce them to understanding the script, I guess, in a nutshell. Above anything else, I mean, we had people with theater degrees also in the class, a couple different people, I believe, but they never done any voiceover. So they have acting skills and developed acting skills. Others have zero. And, getting a feel for how they work. I can work with both simultaneously, I found. Getting people to understand how to break down a script, how to understand what to look for. If they don't give it to you, create it. Quite often, especially with animation and video game sides that you get, they are not actual dialogue sides or screenplays. It's just a paragraph or a line or what have you, with sometimes a one-word direction. You might get you'll get a character breakdown of sorts, varying quality and depth, and maybe an explanation, a description of the game or the animated series, and a brief description of your character, and then it'll say angry, and then you're supposed to read something. It's like, well, okay, that's not enough. to give an informed read. That you need a lot more. So finding the moment before, I talk about that, and giving yourself a reason to say what you're saying, a moment before, literal moment, like playing screenwriter. I want you to write the screenplay. What happens just before this to make you say what you're saying? Who are you saying it to? If they don't give you that, you got to come up with something. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be as specific as you can, and make a choice and commit to it. And I have them speak ideally in specific language. And it's like, well, I think it's like, nope. It is this. And you're making a choice, right? I want you to make a specific choice. Okay. They are my sister. We are by a fire. There's nobody else around. And I'm angry. And it can be informed from what you're given to read. Like, okay, there can be clues to like, oh, why would I be saying this? Can I write something? It's reverse engineering of what you're seeing there. And that works for any form of voiceover, I think, commercial included. Got to have a reason to say what you're saying. Give yourself as best as you can. If it doesn't work, adjust it. And we do that through direction and what have you, and reading it. I try to instill in them, it's like, hey, reading your own script is great, but there are 12 people in class, And your time in the booth, virtual or otherwise, is going to be about 10 to 12 minutes. To be fair, if we're going to get through 12 and have a couple of reads for each person, learning by watching, and I know I did, and I still do, learn by watching other people work. Because all these scripts are different. And everybody gets all the scripts, so you can follow along. And it's like, okay, here's how they made this decision. How is this decision made? So the process is just repetition. Okay, we're going to go through this script and blah, blah, blah. Oh, I see. And this is different from that other script, but there's another little pitfall here we need to avoid. So working with that, I don't really go into like character voice stuff and choosing voice. I go into a little bit of that, but it's if you don't get the script and you don't get how to approach what you're doing, there's no point in putting on a voice, doing a wacky voice. That's a whole other process and comes from something organic, and there can be hints in pictures or in character description about what's going on and how you can place your voice. But you don't need to have, I try to instill in them, you don't need to have a huge vocal range and a bunch of different characters in order to have a career in voiceover, even in animation. I point to H. John Benjamin, who has an extremely distinct voice, but it's his voice. And, Archer and Bob's Burgers and Archer, same dude, extremely different characters, exact same vocal print. So it's mind-blowing.
Not what your voice is, it's how you use it.
Exactly. And the same, and just sort of go through the same thing with video games as well. I go over some basics of like home recording, and like you don't have to spend a ton of money in order to sound much better, and how to set up your closet or whatever, just anything that's going to get reflection out of the room. Some nuts and bolts stuff, talk about demo stuff, and try to answer that as much as possible, and try to discourage people from going and making a demo right out of the gate. Get some experience, get some confidence, find your strengths, and work towards those. Because I've had people come through one class and go like, well, I'm going to go make my demo now. I know what I'm doing. It's like, well, it's not the choice I'd make, but good luck to you. It's really easy to sound really bad. And that's just also the patience one needs to give oneself. It's like, it's a process, and it's not just like, oh, I took a voiceover class and now I'm going to make a demo and then I'm going to get hired. And that's that. Would that it could be that way. And maybe it is for some, not for 99.999% of people, but maybe for you. It takes some practice, and it takes some understanding, and it takes some stick-to-itiveness. So yeah, I try to just be realistic about what's ahead, and to be encouraging, like, just keep at it. The more you do it with somebody who knows what they're doing and can guide you through it, the better. Self-direction at the outset is damn near impossible. If you've had some acting experience, it's a little easier, but voiceover is a different critter, and knowing how to audition and how to format things and how to, learning how to edit, since most stuff is done at home now. I mean, you guys are great in that you can go into Voicecaster and have somebody record it and edit and send it off for you. That is well worth the pittance you charge to do that, relatively speaking. But home recording and editing and those sort of skills are things that develop over time. So
yeah, that's so great. And we hear nothing but good things about your class. It's like people, right. And that's really the biggest thing is like, one, what you're talking about. Two, everybody loves your approach to it. Obviously coming from the acting side, giving an overview of the industry. And then the other thing that I hear all the time is just the encouragement and the supportiveness, just feeling like they're not getting discouraged in class, and right. Like we were just talking about with teachers, like that's huge.
Exactly. And having fun. That's what I tell them at the outset too. It's like, if you're not having fun, I'm not doing my job, because this is fun. It's a mantra of mine. If I start to get screwed up, it's like, oh, it's a big audition. Oh, it's a callback for the animated series. Dave, this is fun.
Right.
Have fun, entertain, have a good time, take a deep breath. It's goofy. It's fun. It's entertainment.
Yeah. I always tell people, I'm like, if you're doing this and it becomes not fun, right. Consistently not fun,
Right.
Find something else to do.
Absolutely. That goes for anything. If you can,
Yep.
some people don't have a choice, and it's like, okay, I get it. You're locked into something, and you got to pay the bills. I dove into voiceover coming out of cooking for 15 years. And it's like, that was a big leap, a leap of faith. And it's like, okay, this is what I want to do. And if I fall on my face, I'll deal with that then, but otherwise I'm just full steam ahead. So
yep. You'll never know unless you try.
Right. I went full absorption. Not everybody has that luxury too. That's the other thing. I just said, I'm burned through my savings. I said, there's time for more savings later. I'm going to do this,
What are
exactly to what I need to do. All right. This is nothing. I'm looking at some blithe decision I've made. It's like, no, all right. No, I'm ready to do this.
It's incredible. What a great story. If you could leave our listeners with one thing, what would it be? Tough question, I know.
Yeah. Well, just be good to yourself and to others. That's all there is to it. Don't be harsh on yourself. Being gentle with yourself, being kind to yourself, and understanding that starting anything new, any kind of new endeavor, creative especially, something that's foreign to you, taking the chance to do that is a very brave thing to do. I don't take that lightly at all, because I've been in that position, and I remember my first class and feeling anxious, and is this teacher going to be a jerk, and what are these other people like? And it's like, and meeting new people can be very difficult for other people. I know it can be for me off and on at times in my life. It's like, oh, I'm sweating bullets, and and there's 12 people I don't know, and it's like, what are we going to do, and what's that going to be like? And I'm not in the mood to meet anybody new tonight, but I have no choice. Okay, here we go. But once I get into it, it's like, we go. It's a brave thing to do, and it's not fearlessness, it's bravery. There is a distinction. Fearlessness is kind of sociopathic. It's like, there are reasons, bravery and being brave is acknowledging that there's fear and walking through it, taking a deep breath and having some faith that it's like, okay, I'm going to do this because I really want to do this. And it's going to feel a little weird and it's going to be a little scary. But once you're there, really be there and acknowledge, like, hey, I'm doing something different here. I'm taking a chance. I'm putting myself out there. Who knows what'll come of it? It's just the effort to be there and be present and do what's asked and learn. Taking that chance is a huge deal. I never take that for granted for anybody.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us today, Dave.
My great pleasure.
Some wisdom in there.
Yeah, and it's just an incredible journey you've been on. It's so fun to hear about it.
Thanks. It continues, and I'm just excited to get a chance to teach, and and thank you for that opportunity.
Yeah, we're more than happy to have you. We're going to keep it going with the intro and the intermediate, and who knows, maybe we'll add something else.
Could be.
I'm all about it. All right. Thank you so much, Dave.
Thanks so much. Good to see y'all.
Catch our next Voiceover Casting Corner episode live on Facebook and YouTube. Check our socials or follow us for the latest info. Thanks for listening.